Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman here with my friend Ryan D'Amico, ready to bring you a great time in the NFL, college football, and a little bit of NBA talk this week. How you feeling, Dia?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm real good. This was a good football weekend. You and I were kind of texting back and forth Sunday, saying how it kind of feels like NFL at least is finally starting to get underway. We had a fantastic slate of 1 o'clock games on Sunday. I mean, so many of them games that came down to the wire that obviously we'll get into and dissect and break apart here. But yeah, I mean, football is in full swing and it's a good feeling, huh?
It's great. Week 3, and I'm finally so excited about it. The first 2 weeks, a little bit disappointing, but this one was great. You touched on it with a lot of good close games, some exciting plays towards the end of games. I was so excited. Even after just the 1 o'clock games on Sunday, I was hyped up for football. I was ready for more, and I'm excited for this season.
Yeah, I feel like you're starting to see players like kind of get into like a swing of things with we even touched on it, I think in one of our previous podcasts. I think you're the one that brought it up that you heard it someone say about players not playing a lot in preseason and whatnot, not being able to kind of get into a flow. You saw that, you've seen that especially with Le'Veon Bell. He's off to a slow start this year. He didn't play and wasn't in training camp and didn't play in the preseason, so he's kind of just starting from scratch. So I think now you're starting to finally see some of these players get these reps under their belt, and they're ready to go now. So I think the best is yet to come, absolutely.
I agree. And there's some more good matchups coming up, so it should be a great season for us, and I'm excited to keep moving forward with it. But
Absolutely.
before we get into our big talk about the NFL and dive into the specific games, start us off with your thoughts from the weekend of college football.
Yeah, college was a good weekend this week. Week 4, the college football season. Some pretty interesting matchups, some desired matchups that happened on Saturday throughout the course of the day. And I guess we'll start. We don't have to go very far with our first matchup. We're going to look at, Zach. We're going to look at that Penn State Iowa game on Saturday night that came down to the very last play, where Penn State is down 4, I believe, and they have the ball on about the 8 or 10 yard line, and Trace McSorley throws a game-winning touchdown pass as time expires, and Penn State escapes there with a 21-19 win, which is in the grand scheme of things, that's a huge win for Penn State. They lose that game. One, it's a conference game. It's your first conference game of the year, so you start out 0-1 in the conference. Plus, night games at Iowa historically have been really tough for high-ranked teams to go in there and win. So that's fantastic for Penn State to get off with a win. And what Saquon Barkley did on Saturday night, I mean, he really took a step forward into kind of trying to get that Heisman Trophy winner. Trying to get that Heisman Trophy. 28 rushing attempts for 211 yards and a touchdown, and he also was the leading receiver on the team with 12 receptions for 94 yards. So you're looking at over 300 total yards, scrimmage yards. He was almost to 400 with kickoff returns and whatnot. So just a remarkable game from Saquon Barkley and a big win for Penn State. I'm not sure if you caught any of that game, Zach, but it was fantastic.
And my NFL fans, you've got to keep an eye on this guy. He's going to be, for sure, a top 10 pick, probably top 5, definitely the first running back off the board. So he's a great prospect coming up if you get a chance to watch a Penn State game, which I have not yet gotten that chance this year, but I definitely do want to look out for that.
Yeah, man, you definitely need to check him out. I mean, I've seen people saying he's the best running back to come out of college since Barry Sanders. I mean, if you're getting that kind of – yeah, if you're getting that kind of hype, man, that's something special. And I mean, he's a great back. His power, his speed, his elusiveness. You can catch the ball in the backfield, which is a plus, obviously, that not many backs possess nowadays. So I mean, he could be a 3-down back, which is huge. So I mean, whoever gets him next year is definitely going to get a stud. So we'll kind of see how that plays out and see how he plays out the rest of the year if he can kind of keep this great season going for him. Another game, Zach, I want to look at, which is it doesn't sound very exciting on the surface, but just for the fact that it's one of the longest winning streaks in college football, and just how it happened is pretty remarkable. Florida beat Kentucky 28-27 on one of the last plays of the game again, as Florida did 2 weeks ago in that Hail Mary against Tennessee in the last play of the game. They almost do the same thing this past weekend against Kentucky, and they squeak out a win 28-27. They score on they convert a fourth down late in that game and on busted coverage by Kentucky, and then they get a touchdown with only a few seconds left in that game. And with that win, Florida raises its winning streak to 31 straight games over Kentucky. That's the nation's longest winning streak in FBS over one particular team. So, I mean, Kentucky is just absolutely snake bitten by Florida. They've had their chances a few years now and have just let it slip away. And, I mean, I just don't know what to say at this point. I mean, to lose 31 straight games to, a rival. I mean, Kentucky-Florida is a pretty good rivalry. It is in basketball and kind of is starting to get back to being that in football now. I mean, what would you think if like the Cowboys lost 31 straight games to the Eagles? Like, what would you say?
It's generations of players coming through and not winning a single game against that team. That's a wild statistic, that 31 games straight that they have not won. That's decades of players coming in and not winning against one specific team. That's crazy. That is wild to me.
31 years. I mean, that's longer than we've been alive. Because I mean, you got to think this isn't like the NFL, and it's not like college basketball where teams play each other twice a year. I mean, they're only playing each other once a year. So, 31 years that this has been going on is pretty crazy. So, one of these days, Kentucky will get off the schneid and get that win. So I'm hoping it's sooner or later. And they should have had it on Saturday, but hey, when things aren't going your way, things aren't going your way. So, they fall and Florida gets to 2-1 in the season. Another matchup, Zach, that I did not see coming. I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I didn't think this team had it in them. TCU goes on the road and hangs 44 points up on Oklahoma State and wins 44-31 down there in Stillwater and knock off the Cowboys, the 6th-ranked Cowboys, who a lot of people were really buying into. We're saying this is a national title team. This is a team that can win the Big 12. I was one of those people. Look, I still think they can. I still think perhaps they will. I mean, that matchup against Oklahoma is obviously key. But, Oklahoma State's defense coming into this game had been fantastic. And, to give up 44 points to TCU, to Hill, Kenny Hill, their quarterback is kind of disturbing. I mean, you gave up almost 500 total yards. Oklahoma State actually outgained TCU in this game. But to play that poor defensively, and then Mason Rudolph throwing only 2 touchdowns as well as 2 costly interceptions, kind of opened some people's eyes. I think Oklahoma State still can be okay. Maybe they were kind of buying into their hype a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see TCU going forward now because they kind of control their own destiny. They obviously have another big matchup later in the year at Oklahoma, but TCU kind of in the driver's seat now.
And Mason Rudolph is a guy that I've seen slipping down draft boards. He was supposed to be a lot of people were pretty confident he was going to be a first-round pick heading into the season. Now it's a lot more split, and he might be a second or third-round pick. So he's a guy that he just continues to drop a little bit this season that hasn't quite lived up to expectations coming into the season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he got off to a good start. I mean, he was slinging the ball over against some inferior competition. Let's not, put that, let's not forget that. I mean, this is a guy that was beating up Pittsburgh and Georgia Southern and teams like that just aren't very good. So, Yeah, his first conference game, and he throws 2 picks. So it's going to be interesting to see Mason Rudolph, how he bounces back and what he does going forward in conference play. So that was another a big game and a big upset. We'll talk about 2 more briefly. Mississippi State, newly ranked Mississippi State, after dismantling LSU 2 weeks ago, they go into Georgia and get absolutely just manhandled themselves. They put up only 3 points against UGA and lose 31-3. Their quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, who was, everyone was high on, he had a great game against LSU. He goes 14 for 29 for only 83 yards and throws 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. That Georgia defense is real. They're the real deal. They're very good, and it's going to be interesting to see them going forward. Georgia is a team, Zach, I have my eye on going forward, and this is a team that I think can get out of the SEC East and should get out of the SEC East and play Alabama in the SEC championship game, which I think would be a fantastic game if we get to that point.
Good. I'll be looking out for that matchup. Georgia's a team I haven't seen play yet. Is there anybody on that team that that really stands out as a specific player that we should keep our eyes on?
You're talking about Georgia?
Yeah, on Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, their 2 running backs obviously are the 2 kind of guys that get the most attention, with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. Both decided to come back this year. They're guys that both of them at some point, I have to imagine, next year will get drafted. Not sure how early, not sure how late, but they'll be in the NFL next year. Another guy that I really like, who's kind of starting to come on a little bit here as of late, is wide receiver Terry Godwin. He only has 8 receptions, but for 214 yards, and 4 of those receptions are touchdowns, Zach. That comes to an average of almost 27 yards per catch. He's a legit deep threat, and he's really kind of helping out his young quarterback there. It was Jacob Eason, who was a sophomore coming into this year. He got hurt. Now, freshman quarterback Jake Fromm has taken over and is playing very well as well. So, and if you look at Georgia's schedule the rest of the way, Zach, it's barring something crazy. I mean, they should win the SEC East and have that matchup against Alabama. Their only real test the rest of the way at Florida and then at Auburn, 2 teams that I have just not been impressed with so far this season. So I'm really pulling and really hoping that we see that we see Georgia take on Alabama in the SEC championship game.
There we go. It'd be interesting to see if they can put up a good challenge. I know we talked about in a previous podcast how we watched that Alabama team play, and I came away very, very impressed. But I'd love to see someone challenge them and put up a really good game.
Sure. And then the last game briefly I will talk about is it's Michigan. They went to Purdue. It's a tough first half, but in the second half, they really just dismantled Purdue. Ended up winning that game 28-10. Starting quarterback Wilton Speight went out with an injury. Backup quarterback John O'Korn comes in and fills in admirably. He goes 18 for 26 for 217 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The interception was off a deflection, so you can't even really blame him all that much for that one. But look, he looked fantastic. And look, this defense has looked fantastic. And all I heard all week was, whether it was just from, straight up or whether it was betting purposes, was how Purdue was the play in this game. How Purdue, it was +10. You definitely have to take those points. How Purdue was going to beat Michigan. This was their coming out party. No. At the end of the day, it was still Purdue. It was still the Boilermakers, and it was still Michigan getting a good win on the road in a place that was sold out for the first time in years over there in Purdue. So, look, Zach, Michigan's defense, I didn't think it was possible, but they might be better than they were last year. I mean, this is a defense, Zach, that led the country in total defense last year. They're doing that again this year, and they're actually allowing less yards per game so far this year than they did last year. So, look, I don't know what to say. I mean, all we heard all offseason was how Michigan only returned 1 defensive starter and how are they going to replace all that talent. Well, look, defensive coordinator Don Brown's got to figure it out, and he's got that team, that side of the ball, that defense playing really well. So they got a bye week this week, and then they got a night game against Michigan State coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm really liking what my Wolverines are doing, and they keep marching on.
And one thing I like about you that always came up as an Eagles fan, you're very realistic about even your favorite teams. That when Eagles were bad, you're free to admit it. When they're good, you know exactly they still have weaknesses. These are their strong points. So I expect that to be pretty accurate there with exactly what you're saying with Michigan and their defense. So are you pretty excited about them moving throughout the rest of the season?
I mean, on that side of the ball, yes. And I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, which you definitely should if you're not already, which you can follow me on Twitter at DIA18.
Dia.
That's right. Look, I tweeted after that game that the defense is that good that they're going to keep them in every game that they play in. But I still worry about the offense, Zach. I'm still a little, suspect on the offense. The quarterback position is still up in the air. You're still waiting for some young guys to step up and waiting for that offensive line to get some more continuity. But, so I'm still a little on the fence with the offense. Hopefully this bye week gives them some time to get some extra reps in and kind of get some more confidence. But look, I have confidence in Jim Harbaugh, and I have confidence in defensive coordinator Don Brown going forward. And I think Michigan will be in every game that they play. I don't think this is a team that's going to get blown out by like 2 touchdowns in any game the rest of the way. So I'm definitely excited, but also, like you said, gotta stay realistic. So I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the year, and I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the year in college football. So that wraps up the college football segment. Some good matchups.
What do you got? What do you got for matchups coming up here this week that we should definitely take a look at?
Yeah, this weekend coming up, definitely. I mean, as there is every week, there's definitely some intriguing matchups. I think the one that sticks out, we'll go down. The matchup that I'm looking forward to the most. Like I said, Michigan's on a bye week, so I'm free to play the whole schedule. From 12 o'clock noon to 8 o'clock at night. And I'm going to go to that 8 o'clock ABC spotlight game that is always on ABC on Saturday nights. Go down to the state of Virginia, your state, Zach. Look at the Hokies, the 12th ranked Hokies, who bring in Clemson to town, the second ranked team in the country, leader in the ACC. I mean, this game is fantastic. I think and this is a game that Va Tech can really help themselves. I mean, if they can get a win against Clemson, look, who knows what can happen? And then you go ahead and you beat Miami. Look, things would be sitting really pretty in Blacksburg for the Hokies. So, and I definitely think they're capable. I think Clemson's kind of riding high right now, and people are kind of crowning them and whatnot. I think this is a perfect opportunity. Night games in Blacksburg, Virginia at Va Tech are extremely difficult. Just like Iowa. We saw Penn State go to Iowa last week, struggle, almost lose that game. I think you'll see the same kind of result here on Saturday night.
There you go. Some great insights there. Checking out that Virginia Tech Clemson game. So there's a good solid college wrap up there for you from the previous week. And from that point, we're heading into our exciting week of NFL football. And it started out last week, we bashed the terrible Thursday night games.
I was thinking about that. Yep.
And I was against this one. I was like, Rams and 49ers, no way am I watching that. And it's on a Thursday night. Turned out to be one of the better games, one of the more exciting games. It was a close game. It was a high-scoring game. Pretty much everything you'd want to watch in a game. Unfortunately, a lot of people just didn't watch. They weren't that excited about this matchup particularly. But one thing, did you see the Rams uniforms, the yellow ones?
I did.
Very fascinating. What's your take on those?
I kind of like them because, look, they reminded me of the Michigan uniforms that Michigan wore against Florida week one. Too. And they were very similar to that with, like, the same basic concept colors, like the yellow and blue. And I thought they looked good. Like, I thought they looked pretty clean, and I kind of like them. And it's funny, I actually like the 49ers too. I like all black uniforms. The Eagles wear those from time to time, and I think they're really sharp.
Yeah, I definitely like the all black ones. My favorite's the Saints, the black and gold. It's tough to
Okay,
get past that. I just
for
love
sure.
that. The yellow is a little questionable to me. It's not as bad as the Dolphins orange ones. Those are
Oof,
rough.
those are rough.
But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't real excited about that yellow. It's just too much yellow.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Yeah, and in this game, Zach, I mean, like you said, it might have been. I think it was definitely the highest scoring game of the weekend. I mean, these teams combined for what 839 yards. It looks like you had. I mean, you had multiple 100-yard receivers. You had a running back score 3 touchdowns. The quarterbacks, Jared Goff had another fantastic game. So, look, this is the second year in a row where the Rams are off to a good start. Last year, they kind of all came unglued for them and unraveled. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue to put that together and get some sort of momentum going here. Next week, they have a big test, though. They have to face your Dallas Cowboys down there in Dallas. So that's definitely going to be a big test for them to kind of see what they're made of. And then with the Niners, man, look, they're 0-3, and they are what they are. They had their chance to beat the Rams, and they let it slip away. Look, their last 3 wins overall out of their last, I think, 22 or 23 ball games were all against the Rams. So they had their chance on Thursday night, and they let it slip away. So, but I watched on and off that game, and then caught like the end of it when the 49ers started to come back. The ending was definitely exciting, though.
Yeah, it was definitely I was impressed just looking through the box score at all those different scores and the variety of people that scored. It was a huge game statistically, just like you mentioned before. So I was both running backs put up big stats, with Carlos Hyde having 84 yards and 2 touchdowns, although he only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. He's a guy that I just don't know what to think about. He always seems to have these good games. For the last, I think, 3 years, he has good games. He looks good. And then he gets hurt. He slows down. He just doesn't
Right.
continue it and always gets the hopes up. This is a game, though, I didn't feel like a lot of these statistics are going to hold moving forward. It just happened to be that they were playing these specific teams, and a lot of these stats are inflated. Robert Woods had 108 yards on 6 receptions. I
Yep.
don't see that continuing. He hasn't had over 100 yards at all this year. I don't know how many times he did it with the Bills, but I'm sure it wasn't very much, maybe once or twice. Sammy Watkins had his first big game of the season, 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, he's always been a very up and down player. He's going to have games like that. He'll probably have another 2 to 3 similar to that, but I don't see it being consistent. I see that across the board. Same thing, Pierre Garcon, 142 yards receiving for the 49ers. It's very tough for me to see these being repeatable numbers here. Although it did serve to be an exciting game, like you said, a close game, the highest scoring game of the week. So fun way to start off the week of NFL games there with that one.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We kind of bashed the Thursday night games last week, saying how bad they've been, and hopefully this is a trend. Hopefully they stay this way the rest of the way, and Thursday night football games turn into this is something special and exciting the rest of the year.
I'd love to see that too. And one other thing I did want to bring up is Jared Goff. He has definitely made some good, strong improvements. Last year, through 7 games, he threw 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. This year, through 3 games, he's thrown the same number, 5 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He's increased his completion percentage from just over 54 to over 70% now. So he's definitely made some strides, and I'm intrigued to see him against some better defenses, but respect to him because he looked awful at times last year.
Yeah, agreed. And I was a big basher of Jared Goff, and was kind of perplexed with them moving up to get him, and didn't think he was an NFL quarterback. He was a system quarterback at Cal, and Look, so far this year, he's kind of made me look like a fool and put my foot in my mouth a little bit there. But like you said, let's see him continue to put that together and continue to do it over the full course of the season. Obviously, the new head coach, Sean McVay, and he's a quarterback-friendly guy and an offensive mind, so he's obviously helped him out there. So Goff's obviously one of the bigger surprises in the NFL so far this year.
And we're going to move from one game with inflated stats and some high scores to one team with inflated stats and a high score, and another team that didn't even show up. So this is the Ravens and the Jaguars that happened Sunday morning. Wasn't on TV, so it seemed like a lot of people I hit up didn't catch any of it. But 44-7, Jacksonville just dominated. Some embarrassing stats here. Joe Flacco threw for 28 yards. This is an NFL Super Bowl winning quarterback throwing for 28 yards. Ryan, if you threw for 28 more yards than you did on Sunday, you would have been just as good as Joe Flacco.
That's right.
And that sounds within reason.
The crazy part is
28 yards maybe.
He got – and if you started him in fantasy football this weekend for some reason, he got you negative points. He got you negative points because he threw 2 interceptions.
Yeah, best player statistically from Baltimore was Alex Collins, who's been on various practice squads lately. 9 rushes for 82 yards, a crazy 9.1 yard average, but that's not going to be something sustainable. That was mostly some garbage time stuff. Huge stats by some players, especially this is a guy we laughed about in the offseason because he was a starting tight end. Mercedes Lewis coming out of nowhere for a monster 62-yard and 3 touchdown game.
Crazy. I mean, that was – he might not have a game like that the rest of his career. I mean, really. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, 62 yards and 3 TDs. I mean, he had 4 receptions, 3 of which go for scores. I mean, and I don't know anyone that had Mercedes Lewis starting in fantasy football. I mean, with the amount of tight ends that there are, that the marquee names that people start week in and week out, didn't see many people starting Mercedes Lewis. But just an absolute ass whipping from start to finish by the Jaguars. And a game that Baltimore, quite frankly, should be embarrassed about. I mean, here you are. You're 2-0 to start the year. You look really good. People are talking about maybe competing with the Steelers for the division. You go to London and you face a Jaguars team that's up and down. You're not really sure what you're going to get. And you let them just pick you apart, and you let them. I mean, you were in that game was over before it started. I mean, that game got out of hand extremely quickly, and I'm interested to see how Baltimore kind of responds after this because they got a big game this weekend. No rest for the weary. They got the Steelers coming to town.
Now, one thing with that, because Baltimore is they have a winning record, just like the Rams, which surprises me. They're 2-1. They played some bad teams there early on, which is why they have that record. But there's 2 2-1 teams I expect to get exposed this week, where the Carolina Panthers play the Patriots and then the Ravens play the Steelers. The only hope the Ravens have is the Steelers playing away, that they have that drop-off. But I still expect the Steelers to beat them and expose exactly who the Ravens are, which the Jaguars aren't even that good of a team, although they have a 2-1 winning record, but they were easily able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, that was, like you said, the game wasn't on TV. I was just kind of following along from time to time, checking in because like I was saying to you, I had Leonard Fournette and Alan Hearns in a couple of my leagues. So I was checking to see, if they could get any touchdowns. And, as the points were coming in, they ended up each getting a touchdown, so which was nice. But, just to kind of see that the score just kept jumping and jumping and jumping. It was crazy. Definitely the biggest blowout of the weekend. So good to get that game out of the way early.
And I'm curious if you'd know this, just looking through the game here. Okay. The leading receiver yardage-wise for the Ravens, Nick Boyle. Do you have any idea what position he plays?
His name is Nick Boyle?
Nick Boyle.
Wow. So he's a running back. He went to USC. He was drafted in 2015. He was a 4th-round pick by the Ravens. And I don't even remember him. Or no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong guy. I clicked on the wrong guy. Oh, wow, he's a tight end, and he went to Delaware. My man, he went to Delaware. He went to Delaware as a fighting blue hen, which is awesome. But he was a 5th-round pick. I'm sorry, of the Ravens in 2015. But no, I really wasn't aware of Nick Boyle.
Because I saw his name at the top of that, and I had no idea. I had to click on his name to figure out who he was, if he was a fullback, if he was some kind of like 4th-string running back I hadn't heard of.
And you said he's the leading receiver.
14 yards.
He had 2 receptions for 14 yards. I mean, if you started some Ravens wide receivers or any Ravens on offense, you might have and probably did lose your fantasy matchup. I mean, Mike Wallace gets you no points. Jeremy Maclin gets you no points. 2 of their bigger names on offense. That's a shame.
Yeah, let's move on. We're out of this game. That is
yes.
Don't start your Ravens. Next game we'll get to was quite the upset here. And this caught me by surprise. Denver was coming off a huge win against the Dallas Cowboys, and Buffalo beat them by 10. Huge surprise. This is a Buffalo team I was not expecting much out of, except for LaShawn McCoy this season. And they were able to pull out that win. It was close for most of the game, but Buffalo had a couple field goals there in the 4th quarter to push it into a 2-score game, and ended up pulling that one out.
Yeah, definitely definitely just your typical letdown spot. You see it year after year, week after week in the NFL. For Denver, they go into Buffalo, which look, I've talked about them on this podcast a lot, and I'm not high on them. I'm still not high on them. They caught fire in a bottle one week and upset Denver. Denver had to get 4 field goals and a 55-yarder, one of them from Steven Hauska, and the offense really didn't do a whole lot as far as the Bills go. Only had 272 total yards, but the big thing in this game is and kind of what it comes down to in the NFL is turnovers. Buffalo doesn't turn the ball over at all. Denver turns the ball over twice. Ultimately, is the deciding factor in the game. So, I just think you chalk this up, Zach. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think you just chalk this up as one of them weeks where, hey, Denver was flying high after an ass whipping of the Cowboys, and Buffalo just came in, and I think Denver was just taking them a little lightly, and they caught them sleeping.
I fully agree. I think that's a very good way of putting it. I expect Denver to bounce back and still have a solid season. But this is a 3rd game in a row with a surprise 2-1 team with a winning record. We talked about the Rams, we talked about the Ravens, and now the Bills here, all with 2-1 records. But I expect that to even itself out over the remainder of the season here moving forward.
Let me throw this out to you. So Buffalo, Jacksonville, Ravens, all 2-1. Would you agree with me that all 3 of them will not make the playoffs?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're not. I don't have faith that any one of those teams can make the playoffs.
There's no question in my mind about it. And I think that's something we were pretty confident of early in the season as well, before it even started. The only team that has a hope there, I feel like, is Jacksonville with their defense. Their defense has been impressive. And that's something we've seen in the past with Denver. We've seen in the past with Houston, that their defense is able to carry them to the playoffs, even with poor quarterback play. So if they could really work out a great running game and that defense continues to stay really high quality, they have a slight hope, but I still don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I don't see any of those teams making the playoffs, but who knows? Maybe one of them continues to catch fire and they surprise some people. But what's the next game we're going to look at there, Zach?
Next game is a second upset in a row here. This was the overtime victory Chicago pulled off against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 23-17. They had 2 game-winning touchdowns there in overtime. They had Tariq Cohen on the long run. Then they ended up calling that he stepped out of bounds. And then they had Jordan Howard that finished off with another long run there. And the Steelers just – they're at the end watching overtime. Their defense was giving up everything that Jordan Howard or Tariq Cohen would take. They were just – it looked like they weren't even there.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. Look, I mean, I don't know how many times we have to talk about it, is just how stagnant and how average this Pittsburgh Steelers team is when they are not playing at Heinz Field. I mean, this team offensively, we just constantly brag about them and talk about how many, big-time playmakers they have and how hard they are to stop. I mean, this is a team that didn't even get to 300 total yards offensively on Sunday. And this is a defense that, like you said, let Chicago just go right down the field and score a game-winning drive on them. I mean, this is a game that, you can't lose if you're the Steelers. I mean, this is a game that you might be looking at in December saying, man, if we could have just only won that game in Chicago against a team that we are a lot better than,
because we'll be able to see in December
mind-blowing
that Chicago's a 4-win team now and Pittsburgh's right around the edge of the playoffs. They should win their division because everybody else is very down this year. But they'll be there 9-10 wins. Chicago will be there 4 or 5 wins. And yeah, they should have taken this one, but they just did not have it. And both those running backs I mentioned for Chicago, the lowest yards per carry was Jordan Howard with 6 yards per carry, which is absurd. Tariq Cohen had 6.5 yards per carry, and it would have been more if he barely stepped out on that overtime touchdown run where he made a great cutback. That game, I'm just 138 yards by Jordan Howard. He had 2 touchdowns. They just torched them on the ground. The Steelers couldn't do anything about it. And their only response was Antonio Brown.
And that's kind of that's how you hang around. I mean, that's how you hang around the NFL is you run the ball, you try to win time of possession, which they did by almost 7 minutes. Did the Bears and like you said, they rushed the ball between Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. They attempted 35 rushing attempts. So you attempt 35 rushing attempts. You only ask Mike Glennon, who, look, no one's going to say he's a Pro Bowl quarterback by any means. You only ask him to throw the ball 22 times, and your defense plays pretty well. Those are recipes for success when you're not a very good football team. So kudos to Chicago for a great upset, and kind of shame on Pittsburgh for just an embarrassing loss.
And in reality, Chicago should have won this in regulation. If they had gotten that blocked kick return for a touchdown. Did you see that play?
Yeah, we need to talk about that too. I completely forgot about that. I'll let you start it off. Talk about that play and kind of. I mean, when I first saw that, I laughed. I don't know what your first response was.
I was just I was speechless. It was crazy to me because it reminded me of Deshaun Jackson when he had a touchdown. He was playing for the Eagles. He had a long pass play, and he dropped the football as he was celebrating and crossing the goal line. But he at least crossed the goal line. This Bears guy, he stopped inside the 5-yard line. He stopped. And I didn't understand. There's no point in any level. I've coached elementary kids in football. I've coached middle schoolers in football. I've worked with high school football players. It's just at any point you finish the play. He stopped inside the 5. It was crazy, and it was amazing to me that they even got those three points out of. It was one of the weirdest sequences of events I've ever seen in my life. Where the block kick, he picked it up, he ran it almost for the touchdown, stopped. The Steelers guy caught up to him, knocked it out of his hand. And then they got that penalty because their punter dove in, knocked it out of bounds. And then it was a weird situation where they were reviewing it. The Steelers had gone to the locker room. They had to come back out. The Bears got the ball in the 1. They had a false start, moved them back, and they kicked the field goal. It was like 10, 15 minutes on with what, 1 second left on the clock, 2 seconds when they tried to kick it. Crazy.
Yeah, dude, that was – I don't even know how to describe that, but I mean, when I saw it happen, I had to laugh. I mean, you have to laugh. You wonder what these guys are thinking. I mean, I say it all the time. I've talked about it on different forums, on different platforms. I've tweeted about it, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves in sports. I mean, these kids, these guys, I mean, they have all the talent in the world. I mean, they're playing a game that you and I would kill to play for and to have that life, I think. And they have all the talent in the world, but when it comes to the intelligence of the game, they're just idiots. Like, they're so dumb about it, and they're so, like, I don't know whether it's like they're not involved or they just want to put on a show so much that they just have these brain farts. Like, I mean, we saw Deshaun Jackson numerous times drop the ball before he gets to the goal line. Like, I don't even understand what's, like, cool about that. Like, what's cool about, like, dropping the ball as soon as you get into the end zone? Like, because that's what he's going for. As soon as he crosses the goal line to drop the ball, that's what that whole thing started. And then you have this kid who, I mean, all you got to do is turn around. Look over your shoulder. Hell, all you got to do is look up at one of the big jumbotrons and see if anyone's chasing or if anyone's close. And, I mean, he just all but comes to a stop. Look, man.
Don't look. Run
like, what are you – right. Just go in. Like, just enter. You want to entertain the fans, that's great. Guess what? The NFL, they just kind of, let these players – celebrate again. They're not as restricted on celebrations. Just get in the end zone. You can do whatever the hell you want. Okay? Just get in there and score, and boom, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest sequences of events I've ever experienced in any pro sports at any level, actually.
And then you have a brain fart by the punter who bats the ball out of bounds, and you can't do that. That's illegal batting. I mean, I saw that 2 weeks ago it was actually the Michigan game where the punter it was 3 weeks ago, Cincinnati. It was the game I was at, and it was the snap goes over the punter's head and was going into the end zone. Instead of, like, falling on it or letting a Michigan player score for a touchdown, he just batted it out of the end zone, but that's a penalty. So it results in a safety. And he has a brain fart of his own. So, I mean, there's a lot of weird things going on there. And that just kind of that was kind of like the tip of the iceberg, which was a very weird weekend in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was one of the things that really stood out to me. It's just crazy.
For sure.
So moving on, we will touch on our first 3-0 team. And this is a team I was clearly wrong about. I thought Atlanta would have a Super Bowl hangover. They barely pulled this one out, but they are 3-0. Atlanta Falcons, respect to them. I was wrong. I'm definitely admitting that right now, 3 games in. I don't see them having a huge drop-off like I expected. And they looked good even though they barely pulled this out. Detroit's a solid team, so it's not like they were playing the Jets or something and barely winning like some of these teams.
But, Zach, another weird ending and another weird moment in this game.
Very true.
I mean, like you said, I mean, Atlanta was up pretty big at one point in this game and let Detroit, come all the way back. And, what appeared to score a game-winning touchdown with only a few seconds left, with 8 seconds left, when Stafford connected with Golden Tate on a slant. That Tate caught, and then appeared to kind of fall down into the end zone. But the call was overturned. The receiver was actually down at like the 3-inch line before the football reached the goal line. And then not only is he down, and not only is there 8 seconds left, but by rule, 10 seconds had to run off the clock that ended the game because Detroit didn't have any timeouts. And that ended the game, and instead of having a chance to go for it on 4th and goal from, like I said, the 3-inch line, the game's over, and Detroit loses a heartbreaker, and Atlanta goes to 3-0.
And that's so tough as a player to deal with that. It's right there, and it's just based off of a rule that it doesn't work, that they don't get that extra chance.
But here's my thing, Zach. I have an issue with this, and I saw it a lot when Sam Bradford was with the Eagles, and I see it a lot throughout the league and through college. And that ball's got to get thrown into the end zone. Like, I'm sorry, but like that ball's got to get thrown in the end zone because just in case something like this happens and you get screwed, throw the ball into the end zone. Guess what? If it's incomplete, you still got 8 seconds left. You still got a chance for fourth down, and you still have a chance to win the game. That ball has to get thrown into the end zone. I am so sick of these players and these quarterbacks and these receivers throwing and running routes a yard short of the sticks or the goal line. That bothers me like you wouldn't believe. Like, that ball's got to get thrown into the end zone. Case closed. You can't tell me any otherwise. But I'm sure you're going to try to.
Well, that definitely does make sense. But it's still – because you can't just send – that's like elementary school football. You send everybody into the end zone and throw it up.
Sure.
It's not going to work out that well for you. And they made a good play. He was inches away. Away, and he just couldn't pull the Dez Bryant and drag the entire team into the end zone like he did against Arizona. But they gave him a great opportunity to win, and they thought they had it there at one point.
Yeah, tough. That's a tough loss for Detroit. I mean, I thought that this was a game that Detroit really could kind of cement themselves as one of the top teams. And I think they still are, but really just from a national perspective, could have cemented themselves as one of the top teams or the top team in the NFC if you go to 3-0 and you beat the defending NFC champs. But kudos to Atlanta for finding a way to win, and they go to 3-0 and they keep rolling.
I agree. And they did survive 3 interceptions there by Matt Ryan, and that's something that they had that close game against the Bears. Now this one against the Lions, that will – at some point against other teams, they're going to be able to take advantage of them and pull out that win. So I'm not all the way in on Atlanta. I know you predicted them for the NFC Championship game, but I'm definitely wrong on them missing the playoffs. That prediction.
Yeah, that was. I think your prediction was you had them going 7-9, if I remember correctly. So they can only win. They can only win 4 more games the rest of the year.
Yeah, hopefully they don't go 7-0.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, there's always that weird team that either has a down year or has an amazing year that no one expected. And you took a shot on Atlanta, and look, I give you credit for taking a shot. I mean, I'm not going to bash you for taking the shot. You just missed, and it is what it is. But yeah, they keep chugging along, and they're 3-0. They are one of only 2, Zach, unbeaten teams left in the league, them and Kansas City.
Yep, very true. Next game will be kind of a downer. It was another close game, but this was the Browns and the Colts. Not a whole lot here with either of these teams because they're both pretty poor right now. Obviously, the only reason the Colts have a win is because they played the Browns. One of these teams had to win this one. And the Colts seem to have it more under control than the scoreboard ended up showing. The Browns had 2 touchdowns late in the game to make it a little bit closer, and the Colts ended up winning 31-28. The only thing I really wanted to bring up, Jacoby Brissett had a fantastic touchdown run where he spun off the defender, ran the rest of the way. That impressed me. Otherwise, I don't really care too much about this game.
Yeah, the only 2 things I'll talk about is Jacoby Brissett obviously had himself a really nice game. He threw for 259 yards, a touchdown, and then ran for the one you talked about, the nice sprint move, and he actually ran for another one. So he had 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 total. That's 29 fantasy points if you happen to spot start him for some reason. Had a nice weekend, and then a guy that finally came alive that I had to start just because I really don't have anyone else in that league, and he's the better option than anyone else I have and can go off at any time. And he finally did. And that's T.Y. Hilton, who caught 7 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown. Thank you, T.Y., for finally coming alive and finally putting up some points. And I actually won that. And I won that game. So
there you go. I have him on 2 teams. One I know I talked to you about on Sunday that I did bench him for that game for DeAndre Hopkins, which Hopkins still did fine, obviously not to the level of T.Y. Hilton. And then the other league I'm in, I did start T.Y. Hilton, and he helped me be the highest scoring team in the league there.
There you go.
Going off like that was huge for me. So another another close game here. These 1:00 games were fantastic. So
Very.
this was Houston and New England. Surprise competitive game here. I had my doubts about Houston, but they had the lead at the very end. They kicked a field goal to go up by 5 with 2:24 left, and Tom Brady just does what he does best, bringing that fourth quarter comeback, touchdown to Brandon Cooks, 23 seconds left to pull out that win, 36-33. He's so impressive. We're living in a crazy time where we get to witness this guy play. He's one of the legends of the game. He's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you said that perfectly, man. I mean, really, we are witnessing the greatest quarterback to ever play, ever. That football is a game that's been around for a long time, and the NFL is a league that has been around for a long, long time. And we're witnessing the greatest quarterback to ever play. And I mean, this is something we can tell our grandkids about, and tell stories about the Super Bowls and the comeback 28-3 down. I mean, Christ, Zach, you and I were watching that in the same room. We're going to get to tell our family about that when we're older. So I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, what he did, I mean, to bring his team back, it's to the point. I don't know about you, but it's to the point with me where I expect it. Yeah. I expect it to happen. Like, I expect Brady to do things like that. And I expect Tom Brady to go 25 for 35 with 378 yards and 5 touchdowns and hang almost 50 points in fantasy football. Like, I almost expect that to happen. Like, sorry, but I mean, he's that good that week in and week out, when that happens, the weeks that happens, I don't even bat an eye. Like, I used to be like, wow, man, like, he's good. Now I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's Tom Brady. Yeah, that's what he does. Props to him. Also, props to Brandon Cooks, who finally had his coming out party. He was really struggling with the Patriots there, but he has 5 receptions, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, the game winner, like you mentioned. So props to him, and props to the Texans as well for putting up one hell of a game. What's your biggest takeaway from this game?
Well, I got to disagree with you on Tom Brady. I do not feel like, it's just another one. Like, every single time, I'm so impressed. I love watching it. But I do agree with you because I'm in a survivor pool with some friends, and I had New England for this one. And those 1:00 games, they were destroying everyone. And I was keeping it updated there and watching all the people that picked Miami get booted out. I was watching some of the other, like we said, with the Buffalo game, with them beating Denver. A lot of people lost on that. And this was one of the games that finished a little bit later. So I was watching all those red X's show up for everyone else. And this is one, it was me and probably about 8. There's a lot of people in that survivor pool. I think we have something like 40. But it was me and probably 8 other people sitting and waiting this one out with Houston in the lead there in the fourth quarter and just watching Tom Brady do his thing. And all the different people he hits on a drive is one of the things that amazes me. They're so deep, and I feel like they can just use anybody. It's Chris Hogan on one play, Danny Amendola on another, Brandon Cooks for the touchdown. It's just a constant group of different people that they're cycling in, and it's not something that he's always focused on Brandon Cooks, even though he had a monster game. He's still spreading the ball around. It's not predictable at all who he's throwing to, but he just gets the job done and gets them into the end zone in the fourth quarter for the win.
8 different players had a reception in this game. Great point, Zach. He spreads the ball around better than any quarterback in the league now, and better than any quarterback that I can remember, at least in my lifetime. So hell of a job by Tom Brady, hell of a job by the New England Patriots. Got to get that defense figured out, though, because the defense so far this year, man, is really letting them down. And, I mean, look, you want to win shootouts with Tom Brady, and that's the way you want to handle it, I ain't going to argue with you. That's going to work more times than it's not. But still, you need to get that defense figured out because, look, what you let a rookie quarterback come into your ballpark there and throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and hang 33 points on you. So you need to get that figured out. But hell of a job by the Patriots, and lucky for you that they pulled that out to keep you alive in your survivor pool. Those are always exciting.
Yeah, still going in that one. And it's always fascinating to see how games go. There's always that one week that just crushes a whole bunch of people. That a bunch of people
Absolutely.
all in one game.
If you had to guess, you said there was about 40 people. Let's just estimate. There's about 40 people. How many people do you think bowed out this week, if you had to guess?
I'd say there were probably already about 8 that were out. I'd say it was
double digits,
cut in half of what's remaining. I'd say probably like 16 to 18.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
There was. I thought it was silly, but like someone picked the Rams because they were the only one with the green check through those 1 o'clock games.
They dodged one there.
Yeah, they barely pulled that one out. And then there are a whole bunch that lost. And then someone had the Cowboys last night that was an individual one. There's another game where I think 2 or 3 people had it, and then I think there were about 7 or 8 that had the Patriots. So probably about 10 people left, and I'd say right around that, like 18 people that lost this past week, the week that just happened.
Wow, that's awesome. You're right. There is always that one week that does seem to knock everyone out of those eliminator pools, the survivor pools. So, kudos to you. Keep it up, and good luck the rest of the way. So, which game we going to next?
This is one that disappointed me by one of the teams, Tampa Bay and Minnesota. And also on the other side, where did Case Keenum come from? He didn't do much of anything for their team the week before and just has a monster game, 369 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, just dominated. And Jameis Winston kept turning it over. 3 interceptions that he threw. The running game didn't get going. This was a team I was excited about. Didn't really look the part at all this week. And Dalvin Cook, another high-quality game from him, 97 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. He rushed the ball 27 times, so his average wasn't as good, but he's been very impressive. There are a couple.
Look at his receptions too, Zach. He had 5 receptions, 72 yards.
Very, very true. Yeah, he's just getting it done. I'm very glad. I have one dynasty league that I had a very successful draft, and I have Dalvin Cook and Kareem Hunt paired together in that league. So nice. What a great combination.
Yeah, that's looking really good for you. But, yeah, a couple of things from this game. The quarterback position, obviously, look, Case Keenum, spot start last week. I don't think he really knew going into Sunday that he was going to be the starters. Probably didn't get a lot of reps in practice. Different story this week. He was the guy, got all the first-team reps. That obviously makes a big difference. And then Jameis Winston, look, that guy's got all the talent in the world and all the potential, all the playmakers in the world. He's just got to stop making bad decisions and turning the ball over. If you watched Hard Knocks at all, that was what Dirk Cotter, their head coach, kept stressing to him, dude, stop forcing it. Stop trying to feel like you have to make every play in the world. If you got to throw the ball away, so be it. But we cannot have you throwing 3 interceptions on the road, even if we are facing a backup quarterback. So, quarterback position there, definitely a little surprising for both teams. And then Dalvin Cook, I have him in one of my fantasy leagues, and he's done fantastic this year, as I think a lot of people expected. Look, I was hoping that in the second round there he was going to fall to the Eagles, and it looked like he was going to before Minnesota traded up and snagged them. What would this Eagles offense look like if they had Dalvin Cook right now? Be pretty scary.
That would be nice there for him, especially losing Darren Sproles this week. But I don't think Darren Sproles would have mattered too much if they had Dalvin Cook.
Exactly. So, definitely an underachieving game there in Minnesota and Tampa Bay. So, not a game I really want to spend too much time on unless you have anything else.
One other thing that stood out to me, I haven't looked into it when it comes to position players and their draft class, but last year's draft had to have been one of the poorest when it comes to position players draft classes in history. Laquan Treadwell in this game had 1 catch for 2 yards. He was a first-round pick. And in 2 years, he had 1 reception for 15 yards last year and 5 receptions for 42 yards this year. This is a first-round pick that just hasn't done anything, and it amazes me.
He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. I remember when he was coming out of high school, he was being recruited. Was one of the final teams he was considering was actually Michigan, and obviously didn't go there, went to Ole Miss, and was absolutely fantastic at Ole Miss. But he broke his leg late in his career there and hasn't been the same ever since, and has been hurt even when he's gotten to the NFL. So injuries have kind of been hindering him a little bit there. A lot of talent, but it's going to be interesting to see how we see it from time to time, Zach, in the NFL with guys that they just can't escape the injury bug. And it's a shame, but, sometimes that's just the way it works.
It's wild how it's that whole draft class, though, because out of the first-round picks, it's him, Laquan Treadwell. It's Josh Doxson on the Redskins, who was hurt all last year, hasn't really done a whole lot. And then Corey Coleman on the Browns. Again, he just had a season-ending injury for the second year in a row. That I don't know what the deal is with that draft class, but it's been hugely disappointing.
Big time. Those three were big-time playmakers in college, so it's a shame it couldn't translate to the NFL, at least so far.
Next game wrecked my 0-16 prediction for the Jets as they pull out a win against Miami. And this is one that threw off a lot of people in that survivor pool I was mentioning. Jets it's not even close. Miami got their only 6 points in the fourth quarter. Jets win 20-6. I'm more just hugely disappointed in Miami. I don't think the Jets are actually showing that they have much life. But Miami Jay Ajayi, 16 yards rushing on 11 carries. That is rough. Dolphins didn't do anything at all.
That's very rough. And, the Dolphins should be extremely embarrassed. I mean, a team in the Jets that we thought were going to be lucky to win one or two games all year. Look, they come in here and they absolutely dominate. And they dominated the Dolphins. And I don't even know what to say. Like, the Dolphins, look, they're lucky. They're lucky they're not 0-2. I mean, if the Chargers can make a field goal, they win that game 2 weeks ago, and the Dolphins lose that one, and they lose embarrassing fashion to the Jets. So, I mean, the Dolphins, look, they haven't been that good to start the year either. So, the AFC East is pretty blah, other than the New England Patriots.
And that's something we thought coming in with Ryan Tannehill going down with an injury. Even if he was there, this Miami team, Jay Ajayi is a solid player. They have some good receivers, but everything else, it's just not very exciting. And it makes me curious if they would have been better off not signing Jay Cutler. They save the millions of dollars they're paying him and just kind of have a year where they go for a good draft pick. And they might end up having to do that anyway because they're this bad losing to a terrible Jets team.
Yeah, I still don't understand how Jay Ajayi only has 11 attempts. I mean, that's 10-0 game at the half. Clearly within reach there. I mean, you can't abandon the run that early. I mean, to have Jay Cutler throw the ball 44 times, you're not going to win many games if you're the Dolphins having Cutler throw the ball 44 times. And pretty bad stuff from the Dolphins in week one. Just to add insult to injury, third down conversions, 1 for 12.
Ugh.
Were the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's awful.
Terrible.
All right, moving on. Getting rid of those teams. They're not going to impact the season too much.
No.
Next game we're going to talk about is your team, the Philadelphia Eagles, barely pulling out a victory over the New York Giants. And this game really kind of disappointed me. The Eagles started out so well, and I thought they were going to dominate the Giants. And basically, Odell Beckham is the only thing that changed that. Sterling Shepard had a couple weird near touchdowns there that he just couldn't hang on to and got overturned. Odell Beckham had some wild catches there, especially the one-handed one over his shoulder in the end zone. He had 2 touchdowns. He looked incredible. And then Sterling Shepard had that long touchdown to give them the lead. Early on, I thought the Eagles were going to run away with this. They were up 14-0, and they made it a game. This Giants team, other than Odell Beckham, does not impress me at all. So I was kind of disappointed in the Eagles, which you almost never hear me say, but I thought they'd win this a lot more easy. But they did end up pulling it out there. They had a field goal right there at the end of the game from 61 yards out. So very impressive there from Jake Elliott to finish off that game. and finish off they had to make a slight comeback there after New York took the lead at one point.
Yeah, I was saying all week, and I was tweeting it out and telling all my friends that, look, I had bad vibes about this game. I was sitting on eggshells all week, and even up until kickoff, my gut feeling still didn't change. I still thought this would be a tough game for the Eagles to win if they did win. I thought that just watching the Eagles since I was a kid, this was just a game that they historically lose when, like, everyone's saying, oh, they're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win, they should blow this team out, blah, 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 blah. You got a desperate Giants team coming to town who's 0-2. If you fall at 0-3, your season's pretty much over. Like, it was just one of them games where I just had a bad feeling about it. And then they get up 14-0, and I'm like, okay, the Giants' offense has been so bad, so poor, like, this should be over. Eagles should just be able to kind of sit on the ball for the rest of the game. Defense had been playing fantastic. I can't see the Giants scoring 14 points. The Giants score 21 straight points and take the lead, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, here we go. Like I said, this is kind of what I expected. But then kudos to the Eagles for going right back down the field after they go down 21-14, after Sterling Shepard gets that big slant pattern that he takes up the seam and scores. Kudos to the Eagles and kudos to Carson Wentz for driving him down the field, and they score a rushing touchdown by Corey Clement, and then they tie the game up late and they go to they tie the game late, get the ball back, and then they kick the 61-yard field goal. I can understand why maybe people from the outside could say they're a little disappointed by the Eagles just because the way the game started being 14-0, you expected them to maybe blow them out a little bit. But the reason I was happy that they got this win was because in years past and like last year, this is a game that they would lose. Like, this was a game they would have found a way to lose. Like, when they got down 21-14, the game's over. Like, last year they weren't going to come back. Like, last year, that was it. Game's over. Maybe they're starting to take a step forward this year. This is a game they found a way to win. They ran the ball more finally. Peterson, said he was going to run the ball more this week, and he did. I mean, you look at Smallwood and LeGarrette Blount, each had 6 carries. Corey Clement had 12 carries, Clement had 6, and then Darren Sproles had 3. So definitely committed to running the ball, and if he keeps doing that, I think they'll continue to have some success. But yeah, crazy ending with Jake Elliott hitting that 61-yarder. I was mentally prepared to go to overtime. I mean, really. I was mentally prepared to go to overtime, and I was mentally prepared to, I don't know if you noticed, but the Giants actually sent Odell Beckham back there to if the kick fell short for him to return it back, like you've seen so many times. And I was mentally prepared for him to take it to the house and celebrate on the Eagles field and me to jump off the second-story window where I was at. So, yeah, look, he makes it, and he's a hero, at least for this week. So, hell of an effort by the Eagles, and that's a big win to get to 2-1 and to get to 2-0 in the division. That's a really big win, and a win that can really go far down the stretch of the season.
I agree, and I was impressed with how they finished it, but I was disappointed in the middle of that game there how they blew that.
Yeah, they hit a lull. Yeah, you're right. They definitely hit a lull. Yeah.
And one other thing with this game, Carson Wentz would have been tied as the leading rusher if he was playing for the Giants. The Giants, 2 leading rushers, each had 22 yards. Their running game is so bad. With Orleans Darkwa and Paul Perkins, neither of them did much of anything. Paul Perkins averaged 2.4 yards per carry. Orleans Darkwa, 3.1. Bad. Just so bad there.
It's terrible. I mean, they might as well not even try to run the ball. Like, it's terrible. It's so bad, dude. I don't even know what to say about it.
I have no idea either. They've got to do something in the draft next year, sign a free agent, both. They need all the help they can get there at the running back position. So for sure. Moving on from that game, we have the Carolina Panthers were put in their place by a previously winless team with the New Orleans Saints beating them 34-13. And what was amazing to me in this game, the Saints defense, we have talked about it repeatedly. It is bad. It was historically bad last year, and it just dominated the Panthers. What is it? This is not the first game the Panthers offense has been shut down by a disappointing defense. And I kind of alluded to it early on. They're headed to New England to play the Patriots next, and it's not going to go well. The Patriots defense is bad, but this is a team. The Saints are far worse than the Patriots and just dominated the Panthers from the start. From the start of this game, it never felt close.
No, not at all. And I was glad to see it. The Panthers, they were a fraud 2-0, like we kind of talked about, and look, they got exposed by a desperate Saints team who, like you said, can't afford to fall to 0-3. And Drew Brees kind of was like, all right, we're not losing this game. He put them on their back, only had 7 incompletions on the game. And look, they thoroughly pound the Carolina Panthers and pound Cam Newton, who, again, I don't understand what more has to be seen. What more people have to see from this guy to just finally come over to my side, Zach, that this guy is an average quarterback. He might even – okay, I'm not going to say he's below average because that's just not fair. But he's an average quarterback at best. I mean, this guy was 17 for 26 for 167 yards and 3 interceptions against a Saints team who, in the first 2 weeks, gave up 29 points and 36 points, respectively. That's embarrassing. And it was at home. Like, Cam Newton is just – I mean, if it wasn't for that one season where he went to the Super Bowl, I mean, this is just an average quarterback that, quite frankly, if it's anyone else and he doesn't have that season, they might be talking about moving on from. Because other than that one season, he hasn't done anything. And year after year, people continue to talk about this guy like he's something special. He's not. He's not a quarterback that can win for you long term. He's just not. That's my opinion.
Because one of the things he does well, I fully agree with you when you say he's just average as a quarterback. Average as a passer is more how I would describe it. Because he's still got in the end zone on the ground. And that's one of the things he does better than almost any quarterback in the league. But to rely on that, just like you said, he had that one season of huge success, and it just hasn't been repeatable. And right now, it looks very, very poor. And I don't see it improving significantly as the schedule gets more difficult.
Absolutely. I expect Carolina to continue just to keep faltering.
Now, from that point, we'll move on to the Seahawks take another loss. They played the Tennessee Titans and lost 33-27. And this is a game I know I did not catch a whole lot of, but DeMarco Murray showed up. And this is a guy I'm curious on your thoughts because he played for both our teams. He was a Cowboy first, then went to the Eagles. I thought he was done after he was on the Eagles and had a miserable season, but averaged 8.2 yards per carry this week. He was injured coming into the week. I know I was talking with some friends that own Derrick Henry. They were thinking about starting him in fantasy because they thought Murray might not play. Murray has a beast mode game, 115 yards and a touchdown there on the ground. Just added one catch for 5 yards through the air as well, but just dominated a good Seahawks defense. And that's a big story here that the Titans have an impressive ground game between DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. Between the two of them, 169 yards rushing, plus Marcus Mariota added another 27. That's what they relied upon the whole game.
Yeah, I didn't think that the Titans were going to hang 33 points up on the Seahawks. Look, coming into this game, I actually thought the Titans were going to win this game and had a feeling that they would. And the Seahawks just continue to struggle to start the season yet again, and they're 1-2 and have to dig themselves out of another hole again, which I'm sure Pete Carroll is tired of doing. But to get back to your initial question with DeMarco Murray, I mean, 75 of those yards came on one carry. So
That's true.
he gets so really just take that away, then he has 40 yards on 14 carries, which isn't very good. So, if Murray was like the every down back, like he was getting like 25 carries a game, I wouldn't like that at all. Like, I don't think that's where he is in his career. But the fact that he and Derrick Henry are splitting carries, I think is trouble for a lot of teams that they have to face going forward. That punch right there, that 1-2 punch of DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry is fantastic. It might be the best running back duo in the league. So props to him, but props to the Titans for getting a big win at home. But you have to feel bad for Russell Wilson, though, don't you? I mean, this guy goes for 373 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's 26 yards on the ground. And the defense, which is supposed to be the calling card for Seattle, can't get it done for him.
Yeah, it's been the opposite through the season so far, where Russell Wilson's been pretty disappointing and just had that monster game now against Tennessee. So hopefully he can sustain that moving forward. He's an exciting player to watch, and I always love when he's at full health, when he's playing well like that. So they can be one of the top teams when they have those two things working together, with Russell Wilson leading the offense and with their defense being dominant. But they haven't been able to put together both sides of that yet this season, which is why they're 1-2 and not one of the best teams in the league.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, they have they have some really winnable games, though, coming up. I mean, Indianapolis, Rams, Giants, Texans, Redskins. I mean, they have some really winnable games coming up. So if they can get it turned around, which it looks like they should, like you said, they should be okay.
Yeah, and that'll help them as they move towards the end of the season and then the playoffs there, once they get themselves together against some of those lesser teams you brought up.
Yep, for sure.
From there, we're headed to yet another overtime game where the Green Bay Packers barely pulled it out over the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals actually, we were very down on them last week. They actually put up a fight here. They had a new offensive coordinator calling plays. They finally looked to get the ball to their best player, A.J. Green. Surprised that actually worked. And Joe Mixon got the most action for him. The best running back gets the most carries, and they're actually relevant again. Even though they lost for the third straight time, it was a much better fight than Andy Dalton throwing the ball into the stands against Houston Texans, which that image is just emblazoned in my mind. How that even happened, I don't know. But they actually seemed like a real team here, pushing Green Bay, one of the better teams in the league, to overtime.
Yeah, and look, you see another 0-2 team that's desperate come out and put up a fight and almost win. I mean, the Giants did the same thing with the Eagles. Bengals here. Saints got a win against the Panthers. So, I mean, the trend was the winless teams. The Niners put up a fight. I mean, all the winless teams last week, if they lost, it wasn't because they didn't put up a fight. The Bengals, look, they just got Rodgered. I mean, really, Aaron Rodgers just was like, all right, I'm just going to have to take this game over. And look, I watched a lot of that game. I watched pretty much the entire second half. And what Rodgers did in that second half, it was amazing. I mean, this guy basically had no offensive line. I mean, basically had to just kind of play sandlot backyard football and just run around, buy time, and find receivers downfield. And one guy he found a lot late in that game, found him with the big play in overtime that really separated the game and blew it open, was Geronimo Allison, which is one of the better names in football. This was a guy that had 6 receptions for 122 yards on Sunday. And like I said, set up the game-winning field goal in overtime. This is the second-year guy out of the University of Illinois, Geronimo Allison, who is stepping up for the Packers and stepped up for him last week. So kudos to him. And look, if it's not for Tom Brady, my opinion, if Tom Brady wasn't in the league right now, my vote for best quarterback in the league goes to Aaron Rodgers. And quite frankly, I don't even think it's close.
I'm 100% on board on that. And like you said, he even has that struggling offensive line. He was sacked 6 times, but still, I can't think of another quarterback that'd be ahead of him. Drew Brees is definitely up there. He's one of my favorites to watch, but I'd still got Aaron Rodgers slightly ahead, right up there, just behind Tom Brady as the best quarterbacks in the league.
For sure.
So divisional game up next. Kansas City took on LA Chargers. And this game went somewhat as expected. The Chiefs were 2-0. Chargers were 0-2. The Chiefs pick up the win, move to 3-0. They are the second of our undefeated teams that we mentioned, the Falcons earlier. And the Chargers move to being one of just 5 winless teams so far. And this was their first one that wasn't even that close. They lost 24-10 there. Kansas City got off to an early lead. They were up to 17-7 at one point before the Chargers got a field goal at the end of the second quarter, and then they ended up scoring. They got a touchdown at the end of the first quarter and then a field goal at the end of the second quarter. Didn't even score in the second half. So I'm disappointed with the Chargers. They have some weapons with Keenan Allen coming back. I thought they'd be a lot better, and they just haven't been able to pull out wins.
Yeah, look, you were wrong on the Falcons. I was wrong on the Chargers. This is a team I was high on coming into the year. I thought they had some playmakers. Injuries haven't done this team any favors, but I'm not going to put it on that. Quite frankly, on Sunday, Phillip Rivers was downright pathetic. He threw 3 interceptions. He could have thrown 6. There were definitely ample opportunities for that to happen in that game with some drops by the secondary for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I mean – And look, call me crazy, but I'm a little worrisome again for the Eagles this week. They got to go out to L.A. and face a winless Chargers team who is desperate right now and needs to get a win badly. So I'm a little concerned there. But this game, I think you just got to tip your hat to the Chiefs. I mean, this team's playing – they got to be one of the top 3 teams in football 3 weeks into the season.
Definitely. Like we said, they're one of 2 that are undefeated.
Yeah, I mean they're just clicking on all cylinders right now. I mean they're winning blowouts, they're winning close games, they're winning on the road, they're winning at home.
They beat the Patriots.
Right. I mean they're doing some really good things right now. So kudos to them and kudos to Big Red and Andy Reid. So yeah, they keep on keeping on.
And I was impressed coming out right from the start and hitting Tyreek Hill for that touchdown. That was a big start. And then they were able to rely on Kareem Hunt the rest of the game. An incredible 10.1 yards per carry this game. He had 17 rushes, 172 yards, and a touchdown. This guy's just been an incredible rookie this year. And he's dominated every single game so far.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's a guy that, look, in college, I always like those weekday games just because it's something to at least watch, some football to watch during the week. And most of the time they're MAC games, the MAC, the Mid-American Conference. And he went to Toledo, did Kareem Hunt. And so I got to watch him a lot in college. And, you just kind of saw it with Kareem Hunt in college that he had it. Like you thought that he could translate well to the NFL. I think he translate this well? No, but I still can't say that I'm 100% surprised with how well he's playing. He's doing very, very well. And I'm interested to see how he can keep that up over the course of the year because, as we know, rookies tend to hit that wall. We kind of saw it with Carson Wentz last year, and we saw it with some other guys. They seem to hit that wall late in the year. They're not used to playing so many games. It's going to be interesting to see how a running back does because not only is a running back a rookie and they're going to hit a wall, but they're a running back, and they take some serious punishment throughout the course of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kareem Hunt can hold up through the rest of the year.
I agree, and it'll be interesting to see with the rookie wall that does happen with a lot of players because we have two rookies as the 2 leading rushers in the NFL. Kareem Hunt, number 1, with 401 yards through 3 games, and then Dalvin Cook, number 2, with 288 yards through 3 games. And one guy that surprised me in that top 5 of rushing so far, the number 5 guy, CJ Anderson. Would not have expected him to be up there.
Yeah, he had a big game last week against Dallas, which really helped him kind of boost that total.
So we're down to our second to last game so far, and this game definitely caught me by surprise. Oakland Raiders losing big, losing 27-10 to the Washington Redskins, who I had watched the Redskins the previous week, and they just looked so mediocre. And Oakland, we know, is a good team, and the Redskins put up the first 21 points in this game and never looked back. 27-10 victory there. Marshawn Lynch never really got going. He had 18 yards on the ground. They barely rushed the ball. He only got 6 attempts there. It was just not a good day. The leading receiver, 43 yards from Jared Cook. The Raiders offense just never really got going.
Not at all. I mean, Derek Carr, 118 yards, throws 2 picks. Their number 1 and number 2 receivers, who are Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper, each have 1 catch. Crabtree goes for 7, and Cooper goes for 6 yards. Those are the stats they're going to put up. Yeah, you're not going to win very many games. Look, the West Coast going to the East Coast going to the West Coast, those are tough games. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're one of the better teams in the league and you're facing one of the worst teams in the league. Those are tough games. And I thought it would be a tough game for the Raiders. I didn't think they'd lose 27-10 and get their ass kicked. I didn't see that coming. But look, this is a game that, look, if you're the Raiders, this is just a game you just chalk up and you just throw away. And you say,
I agree.
All right, we got to
just move on.
You move on. We had a bad game. It is what it is. We know we're still a good team. We have a big game at Denver this weekend. We can't harp on this game. We got to move on.
And one other guy I wanted to bring up there, Chris Thompson. I mentioned him last week because he had a fantastic play, spinning off a player, making some moves there. And he looked so mediocre every time I watched him last year and just continues to impress me. 6 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown there. Easily, it's not even close, easily their leading receiver there in Washington. And he's been their go-to guy that they feed him the ball on the ground. They're throwing the ball to him. He's making plays. I've been very impressed with what he's done.
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, he's been fantastic, and he's kind of been that mismatch nightmare for teams, and they're finding good ways to use them. And they also got Josh Doxson involved finally. The second-year wideout who was hurt all last year. He had a big deep play down the field, a big touchdown catch. So they're getting help from a lot of different players. So going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how the Redskins kind of try to continue to put it together. So like you said, didn't see that one coming, but hey, that was the story of this week in the NFL.
And you mentioned Josh Doxson there. He's a guy that if he's going to make plays like that, he deserves more chances because Terrell Pryor has been so disappointing this year.
Very.
And even I was high on Jamison Crowder going into the season. I know you were as well. He's been way lower than I thought he'd be. He's been pretty mediocre so far. Pryor's just coming off a bad game there against Oakland. He just didn't do much of anything at all. Doxson only had that 1 catch, but it was a 52-yard touchdown. So I'll be very intrigued to see if they can get him more involved or if they stick with the 2 guys that just haven't been working like they were expected to.
Exactly. Which brings us to the Monday Nighter last night, Zach. Your Dallas Cowboys went into Arizona and they handled business.
They did. I was excited to see them bounce back from that Broncos loss where they got blown out. And it's always interesting to see how a team responds to that. And the Cowboys, they started out very slowly, but once it got there to the end of the first half, they got a touchdown late there on a Dak Prescott rush. That was an exciting play too with him going over the defender. And then they really pulled away there in the second half, which I was very happy to see and excited about. Zeke Elliott, he got going again after terrible game against Denver. Not an amazing game by any standards. 22 rushes, only 80 yards off of that. He got a lot of carries, but only averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Also had a touchdown there, but I'd much rather have that step forward than what he did last week.
Yeah, look, and we were talking before we went on the air here. That game could have really got out of hand quick for Dallas. They could have fell down 14-0. Palmer throws a touchdown pass to Jerron Brown, his second of the game, which should have been his second of the game. Gets called back because of a flag, a penalty, a holding call on the right tackle, and then they go ahead and miss the field goal, and it's still only 7-0. So instead of it being 14-0, it stays 17-0, and the Dallas goes down and ties it at 7. And and then they pulled away in the second half. So very fortunate there. The defensive line I thought looked really good against a kind of makeshift Cardinals offensive line. The defensive line for Dallas has looked good so far this season. It's going to be interesting to see if they continue to do that all year. But for me, that game yesterday was Dak Prescott. I mean, what he did on with his legs and his arm is the reason they won the game. Elliott had 80 yards, 30 of which came on one carry. So basically, I like to look at that. I like to see what your longest rush was. Take that away. Let me see what you did other than that. Kind of like with DeMarco Murray. So let's take that away. Let's take 30 yards away from that. So really, he had 21 carries for 50 yards. That's terrible. He needs to pick it. He needs to pick it up. I don't know if it's the offensive line, if it's him. I don't know what it is, but they're going to need him to find a rhythm and get back to where he was last year. But hey, they find a way, and kudos to Dallas for a nice win. But like I said, I think the reason they won that game last night was because of Dak Prescott.
And we mentioned it a couple weeks ago where Austin Hooper had that monster game for Atlanta, incredibly efficient. Yeah. He had 2 catches. I think it was 120 yards and a touchdown. Bryce Butler does the same thing this game. 2 targets, 2 catches, 90 yards. One was a 53-yarder. The other was a 37-yard touchdown. Incredible efficiency. I love to see that. I do not expect it to continue moving forward. He'll make a couple plays like that, but I'm not relying on that at all.
No, you can't. I mean, you can't. I like to know what percentage of leagues he was started in. Probably 2%, maybe.
Yeah, it can't be many at all. That might even be how many leagues he's owned in, 2%.
Right. Exactly.
And then huge respect in this game. Larry Fitzgerald just continues to produce and produce and produce. He had 13 receptions, 149 yards, a touchdown, some incredible grabs. He still looks like an elite receiver. I'm just always so impressed with this guy, and he's done it for years and years and years and years now.
Yeah, one of my favorite players, and it's crazy because he's talking about retiring, and he's still one of the better receivers in the league and continues to put up numbers and makes spectacular catches and makes great plays and is a great team player and is a great leader. And I got him in one of my fantasy leagues, and he was just hanging around. And finally, I think I got him as like my 3rd wide receiver, and I'm like, this can't be right. Like, Larry Fitzgerald's still out here? Like, yeah, I'm going to take him. And it's a PPR league. So, I mean, last night in that league, he got me like 30-some points. Like, it was fantastic. So, yeah, kudos to him. And I hope he sticks around for another year or so because he's a fun player to watch.
He certainly is. And I'm one of those guys, if I was in that fantasy league, I would have been ignoring him too. I have a hard time drafting solid vets like that you kind of know what they're going to produce, but they don't have much upside. And I probably would have gone for someone a little bit younger that might be in a better situation, like a Jamison Crowder at the draft. And clearly, Larry Fitzgerald just continues every year. You think he's going to drop off, and he continues producing. He does what he does, and he's just so good at it.
Yes, sir.
So moving on to our final thoughts here for this week. Big trade in the NBA. The Carmelo Anthony was sent to Oklahoma City Thunder. Plenty of people have dissected that trade and talked about it. I'm not going to worry about breaking that down and breaking down any of my thoughts on those teams right now. But I did want to talk about building a team and how we would approach it. So with Carmelo, it's an exciting team. They have some fun players now in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook, incredible athletic point guard. They've got Carmelo Anthony. He can play either forward. He has played either forward position. And then Paul George also can play either forward position. Some fantastic players, but especially being out in the West, they're not really a championship contending team. They're built for the next couple years to be a good team, but I don't see them being able to make a run. If you're starting with a franchise today and taking over a team in any sport, what do you look to build around on that team?
I said this last year. I believe I tweeted it out or talked about it on some platform, a podcast of some sort. that I'll give you a player. If I were to start a team right now and I could pick any player in the NBA to build my team around, the player that I would pick, and this I think surprises some people, but I would pick Kawhi Leonard for the San Antonio Spurs. One, he plays both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Two, his shooting since he came in the league has improved tremendously. I mean, tremendously. Three, he's a fantastic team player. He's not a me guy. He distributes the basketball. He's just a great teammate. And four, he's young. I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, I would take LeBron or I would take Carmelo or I would take any one of those, like, you know, quote unquote superstars in the league. But let's not forget, those guys are getting up there in age. So I mean, if I'm starting a team right now, I'm taking Kawhi Leonard to be my number one guy and to build my team around.
And that's a great pick. The thing I love about that for building a team around is he's just such a steady, hardworking player. He's not going to have any issues with the refs, with talking about coaches, with having problems with the media. He's just a steady guy, a steady, reliable guy. And I love that. I love that building your team around that. And you have to have that. If you're building a team, you've got to have a foundation of guys that are going to build it. They're going to buy into the system. They're going to put in that work. They're going to be willing to learn what the coach is trying to implement. And Kawhi Leonard's a guy I absolutely love. I have a huge respect for. I'd still go a little more flashy if I was going to build around one player.
Okay.
Go Steph Curry.
And then also, who wouldn't want to come play with Kawhi Leonard? I mean, you could poll 100 NBA players, and I don't know. I don't think any of them would turn down the shot to play with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, there's, like you said, you can't say anything bad about him. And I mean, you can get some nice pieces around him, and he's just that steady option. So, yeah, I would go with Kawhi. That's how I'd start my team.
His skill set is incredible for adapting to any team. Like some guys, if you put Steph Curry on a team with a bunch of shooters, it's going to be a weird combination.
Yeah.
And it's same thing with a lot of Karl Anthony Towns, a big man. You put him with two other big men, it's not going to be a great fit. Kawhi Leonard, you can put him with any four guys, whether it's he needs to shoot, he can do that. He needs to just worry about defending and let somebody else take over on offense, he can do that. He can be whatever. He can be molded into whatever he needs to be based on his teammates, based on what his team needs, based on the coaching, what they want from their team. And I fully agree. I love him as a player. And I agree. The biggest thing you've got to look for with building a team is that leadership and that personality that you're going to build around. Because we've seen it so many times with the Cleveland Browns trying to draft a Johnny Manziel, things like that, where they go for a player and they don't have that foundation built yet, and it just doesn't work with the system there. And it's so important to establish that, to build the rest of the team around. I'm in full agreement with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, the NBA is a weird it's a weird league. I mean, for the longest time, like the bigs were like non-existent in the NBA for a while there. I mean, after like Shaq got out of the league and whatnot, I mean, bigs kind of went away. And now they're starting to come back. I mean, with Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid and guys like that, I mean, bigs are starting to come back a little bit more. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. And some, you know, I mean, those are three bigs that their respective teams are building around. I mean, the Sixers are building around Embiid, and then the Timberwolves are building around Anthony Towns, and then obviously Anthony Davis. They've definitely been building around him in New Orleans. So, you know, I think the big is in my opinion the most interesting position in basketball right now.
That's very interesting and a good point. I know when we were younger, there were a good amount of very dominant big men with David Robinson as he retired. Tim Duncan came on, who's
Patrick Ewing
retired now. Patrick Ewing, Shaq. I just remember being fascinated at Shaq. He was a guy I kind of relate to LeBron at this stage, where I can't relate to him as a human. I'm not a ginormous human being that can just dunk on anybody and the strongest person in the gym, no matter who I'm playing against, like Shaq. And same thing with the LeBron. He's just an incredible, incredible athlete that I don't really have a hope to attain that athletic ability. But he was just so dominant at that time that I loved watching him play, even though I hated the team and hated seeing him win every single year. I just had a huge respect at his dominance there at that position. And just before he got there, there was another guy like Hakeem Olajuwon. There were definitely some good big men, and I agree they dropped off. They were more specialized for a while there, where you have a Ben Wallace that's a lockdown defender, someone like that, or you have a more of a strictly like a Dirk Nowitzki that's going to be a big man shooter, that's going to be more of a scorer.
Yeah, there was a lot of tweeners. Like there wasn't like predominant just centers. Like there was that time for a while. Like, and I think Dirk's a great example of like a tweener. Like he's big, he's 7 feet, but he's not going to go down low and box you out. That's just not his game. So it's definitely fascinating to see where how kind of the bigs have come full circle in the NBA. Now we're getting back to the center position again.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And bringing up Embiid, even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I did grow up there in Pennsylvania during the time of Allen Iverson, which is the number one reason I became a Sixers fan. So it should be an exciting NBA season here. We'll definitely get to talk about it a little bit as we go on and continue covering football. But that's another sport I'll be excited about. The Sixers have some good additions here, including J.J. Redick. I grew up as a shooter and loved watching him play. He was a huge inspiration to me, so I love to see that he's in Philly. They haven't had a high-quality shooter like that since Kyle Korver, so I'm really excited to see how that works out.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be exciting watching the Sixers for the first time in a while this year, and rightfully so. They have a lot of talent, and they have a lot of guys that a lot of young talent, a lot of guys that will make people want to buy tickets. And one guy I think is going to really, I think it's going to be better than people think, and people think he's going to be good, but I think he's going to be really good. I think Ben Simmons is going to be very good. Like, I mean, I think Ben Simmons is going to be like really good. And I don't think people, just because he didn't, like, I feel like he got kind of like forgotten. Like he didn't play at all last year, and people are like, oh yeah, we still got Ben Simmons, but we just drafted Markelle Fultz, so we're excited about him. And then MB, we're still excited about him. And I just think like he's that forgotten player, but don't sleep on him, because I think Ben Simmons is going to be very good.
I love Ben Simmons too, and he's had a year to work with the staff, to work with some of the other players as he was rehabbing from that injury, and I'm excited to see him back on the court. And I would not be surprised if he takes Rookie of the Year, kind of like Blake Griffin did, where he was out with an injury for a year, comes back. I
think he will.
And I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what's going to happen. That's my opinion for that, for sure.
So Sixers basketball should be some exciting times coming up. You got a whole bunch of different topics that we covered here today. College football, NFL, talking some NBA. It's always a good time. You never know what to expect here with myself, Zach Kaufman, and Ryan D'Amico here. So any closing statements there from you, Ryan, before we end the show?
Not so much this week, man. Just like, follow, share, like we always say. Get the word out there. Those are kind of my only final thoughts. Nothing else really going on that I can think of right now. So, just, please give us your insight and your opinion on the show and kind of what we can do better. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you next week, and I'll let Zach close it out.
There we go. Enjoy your week of sports, whatever it is you're into. Find it on TV. Go play it outside. Everyone have a great, great, great week.